Welcome to the Best-Selling Authors Podcast. I'm your host, Maureen Ryan Blake. Today, 5 biggest pain points entrepreneurs will face in 2024. Oh, we're here. And I have my guests, Belle Walker and Lisa Levesque, their book, Generation Innovation. I can say that all day long. So let's bring this on. Let's give you those countdowns. And let's bring you forward in 2024 because it's all about being an entrepreneur. And I see, hear, and believe in you. Hello.
Hello.
Lisa,
Hello. Thank you.
Welcome to the show. Okay, let's get into it. So again, 5 biggest pain points entrepreneurs will experience in 2024. Starting with it.
Yeah, we can dive right in. So one of the things that Lisa and I am prepping for this conversation really talked about is at the heart of our book is this belief that business basics are always relevant. And so when we looked at the 5 biggest pain points for 2024, we didn't see a ton of surprises, right? We saw problems and challenges that leaders have been facing for generations that are still going to be relevant. So starting with security, right? And security has evolved over the years. So these days it is more of an emphasis on cyber security than physical security. But challenge 1, cybersecurity threats. And we really dive into this in the 3rd chapter of the book because we have a dental practice featured as one of the key businesses and a tech startup. Dental practices have a lot of very personal information that needs to be protected. And technology, a tech company, it doesn't matter how many touch points you have with the real world when you're processing transactions and payments, and in their case, storing people's addresses along with their information, all of that needs to be taken under consideration. And so this is just a great time to remind entrepreneurs that no matter what your business is, chances are really good you've got some information either internally proprietary or for your customers that is living in the cloud and needs to be protected. And there's no time like the present to start getting on top of it.
All right, so I'm going to expand on this a little bit because I want to get into also AI opportunities. You get into that. I love that in the first chapter. So the book, Generation Innovation. First of all, the way it's written is a narrative. There's a play between a mother and her daughter. So there's also operating system. The mother is a dentist, so she is an analyzer and goes into more of that with her experience. And yet Belle's a thriving, Belle. Nancy, and who taking it away there. Nancy is this budding entrepreneur who has her vision, and she can't get it done fast enough. And yet, at the same time, she's committed, and she knows it, and she has what it takes to get it done, just like you do. So that's the backdrop to the story. Let's go into a little bit in the first chapter. It also goes a little bit into innovation. And thinking out of the box with AI and coming on an AI and not necessarily having in the book that you had Nancy, who's again the mom.
Arnie is the dentist, and Kate is the daughter.
She's the mom, and she has a dental practice. She's successful. Let's be real here. Again, another successful female entrepreneur. And yet her daughter, Kate, and I just want to keep saying Belle, but her daughter, Kate, is this idea for mobile move, right? Move mobile.
Move mobile, yeah.
Mobile. And basically, you have this concept up in college. And move mobile is that, hey, college students, we're moving all the time from dorm to dorm, here to there. And we get to figure out how to make this easy, utilizing people around and connecting. Beautiful, brilliant piece that was really holding Belle back, holding Nancy
there
back.
You go.
No, holding Kate back was how do I start with limited resources and do this, as we say, bootstraps and get it done and prove, and then I'll come back for financing. So within that AI, the opportunities that we have in there to close the gap, that you don't necessarily need to have a whole full staff, which was what was discussed in chapter 1. Let's get into utilizing resources, utilizing technology, and piggybacking into cybersecurity.
Yeah, and so I can talk a little bit to that. One thing we were trying to be careful about in the book was not being too specific about the technology that we referenced, because it's such a dynamic and changing landscape. And so, AI is going to be a big piece of it. We were also looking at outsourcing and having this fractional support from experts. And so that's one area where I think AI is going to partner with the humanity to really allow entrepreneurs to bring more insights into their business with a lower investment point, which is so important when you're early stage. And so that feeds into the cybersecurity, because many businesses in their early stages don't have the resources to be fully owning cybersecurity from day one. And that's a great place where you can look to experts to bring them in on a part-time fractional consultant basis. Make sure you're laying a strong foundation, that you have the pieces in place. And of course, if you do need that full-time support, go for it. But it's not all or nothing, right? It's not a situation where you say, I'm not a cybersecurity expert, so I'm not going to do anything, or I'm going to hire a full-time employee. There's so many options in the middle that we wanted to make sure that entrepreneurs were aware of.
Yeah.
And Lisa, I don't know if you wanted to build on that.
Yes. Lisa.
Yeah, no, completely agree. I think that the exciting part of it all was this daughter wanted to try something completely different than what her mother did. Her mother's a very brick and mortar type of a company, and she wanted to be just really flexible and, kind of being innovative and all of that. And I could definitely see the AI element kind of taking the place of some of the outsourced people too, to some extent. Again, to Belle's point, we didn't explore it then because of how dynamic all of that is. But I think the better part of it all was just how exciting it was to try to use other sources besides the standard brick and mortar plus the full-time W-2 employees to create a business that can flourish and grow.
I love how that can be fractional and looking at it differently, and also how the two generations, the acknowledgement of that both. And this is what I love about having staff, is that in multi-generational in the company, as well as different age groups, everyone's bringing something to the table because it's coming at a different vantage point and a different place of what they're experiencing. And it being this dynamic that we're living in, my goodness, grab onto all of it, because all the different vantage points are crucial with keeping up. And you guys really leaned into it. So I love that. All right.
Yes.
Number
2 is attracting and retaining talent. It's been a problem for a while, and it continues to be a problem. And it's especially problematic for really early startup entrepreneurs who are trying to move forward, and they just can't get a team that can help them be as effective as they can. And we explored this in the book called, we explored it in the book because Kate, I don't want to call her Nancy or Belle, now I'm going to start, I apologize. Kate and her partner, they did transition to having a little bit of a mix about external and internal, but they found early on that they wanted to be cool and different with their benefit offers. They didn't want to be your standard, you get a 401k, you get a healthcare plan, but they wanted to be giving their employees what they wanted. And as a result, they didn't really have a pulse on what they wanted. And their employee, a really key employee, gave their notice because they actually needed a benefit that was not offered. It was basic family health care, and they were expecting a child. So, it kind of took the whole story back to, hey, there are some fundamentals that employees always are going to need, and especially in today with how astronomically expensive healthcare is if you're not part of a company plan. But there's more than that. There's innovative benefits that you can offer to draw in these people that otherwise could go in a lot of different places because there's a lot of opportunity out there. Flexible schedules will continue to be something that employees want. Mental health support, more and more. Companies always had kind of their program that you could go through, but kind of being even more innovative in that is super helpful to attract good employees. Developmental opportunities. What are you going to do to help make me better? Are you going to help pay for my master's degree? Are you going to give me in-house training or send me places? Do I have a budget for that? Employees want the employer to take a commitment to their training and development as much as the employee is for themselves. Programs to support their financial well-being, tuition assistance, retirement savings, education programs, kind of what I said a moment ago on development, but a little bit more on the financial side. Social responsibility is huge. Employees want to work for a company who is socially responsible and is in some way not hurting, right? Either the environment or whatever, but in some way giving back to actually make things better than they are today. Really important, huge draw if your company has that huge draw. And then, parental and family support. We have these working families out there and the dads want to spend time with their kids just as much as the moms do. So obviously paternity leave, which isn't new. But finding innovative ways to get the most out of your employees, but still allowing them that balance so that they can live their full life with their family. So those are some big things employers need to think about. I'm sorry. Going forward.
Even in the beginning, before you hire someone, that I was taking notes, because as an entrepreneur, that after you're gaining clients and you're building, it's the retaining the clients and having the systems in place, meaning retaining personnel, right? Wasn't it Nancy lost a key hygienic? And it was, I was feeling that. And then she was lost. So what I loved was went back to strategizing not only the expectations, but the job description, how do I get to be successful within your company? And as an entrepreneur, I really found this valuable because I was able to look at it through my staff. And they get to be successful, I get to be successful.
Yeah, no, that is such a great point. And I think a lot of times, or a long time ago, the employee was just that. They were an employee. They were a piece of the business. The enlightened employers, the successful employers moving forward are those who truly understand the value of each individual human being and what they bring today, what they could potentially bring tomorrow, and bring, because we're all different. So let's bring out the best in everyone, and the entire company, improves and succeeds as a result. So if the company that sees their employees as the most critical element of what they're delivering is the company that will be successful.
So within the suite that came out of the book, that even before you hire someone, how to set up an employee for success, which is definitely part of retaining employees.
Yeah. Oh, so first of all, you need to understand what your ideal employee looks like for that specific role. Okay. And you can, and you got to use your head and not your heart on that one. Because the heart can really, I love using the heart, but when you're setting up, this is exactly what I need to get out of the role. This is the type of person that I know will succeed in the role, and you stay true to that, then you're communicating to them a role and expectation, how you would like to see it done, but also recognizing that they have those qualities. So if they see it and agree and you see it and agree, it's really a win. Because we've seen it time and time again. You bring in someone who you absolutely love as a person and they're great energy, but they just don't connect with what you truly need to get out of the job. So you need to really work hard up front before you actually bring someone on board to make sure that they're actually the right person for the role.
What about giving them a role?
Setting expectations?
And I'm giving a little hint there. An expectation.
Absolutely. I always say, I coach business owners all the time, and I say it's really easy to lead people. You tell them the expectations of the job. You give them the tools to get it done, and then you get out of their way and let them get done. Now, they're going to run into roadblocks, and your job is to help them with that, but otherwise allow them to do their job, set the expectations. If they have questions, ask you. So that's why hiring the right person who you know will get those expectations, who you know can perform within those, is really going to set you forward very quickly. Yeah, expectations are key. You're absolutely right.
There's also a running theme of the platinum rule that needs to come into this, because there is this kind of balance around, and sorry, just to back up slightly, the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Platinum rule, do unto others as they would have done unto them. And there's definitely a balance between looking at the needs of the business and the needs of the individual. And so, Maureen, part of what I hear you referring to is this full life cycle of not just an employee, but a role within the organization. So there's the needs of the organization that need to be articulated, the expectations, as Lisa was laying out, not just what are we asking you this role to accomplish, what are the resources we're giving, and what are the constraints that they're working within, laying all of that out up front, and looking at then the humans that you're bringing in to fill that role, and making sure that you are, I'm flashing back to the section where chief of staff is brought on board. And that is a notoriously ambiguous position where often the expectation is make my life easier. Great. Yeah, that's all. But looking at how you do that, Kate goes through a whole cycle where she is trying to bend over backwards to make this role amazing for this fabulous person that she's hired. And because they don't actually talk about what that person wants, it backfires, and they're able to resolve it. Spoiler alert, but that whole dynamic in conversation is crucial to making people feel recognized and valued, empowered, and enabled.
When you're talking about this, as much as from the first part of being the flexibility and allowing staff, I don't call them I call them staff, to live the life that they want to live, and their vision gets to be incorporated in the team. That flexibility and working remotely brings on another challenge for the entrepreneur to bring them forward. And so that aligns with the cyber and AI, and as well as remoteness, and then also these are all the changes and the flexibility that we get to embrace as an entrepreneur, but the challenges that we get to also bring forward. Challenge number 3, the possibility of a looming recession or change in our economic conditions. How's that? Right? Is that the 3 that we're going with, Belle, right? Yeah. So, yes. And we all know, we heard last year we're going to have a recession. We didn't. We hear this year, maybe we're going to have a recession. The difference this year is it's an election year. And we all know that there's a lot of things that can happen. Interest rates might be managed depending on the way things go. And so it's important for a business owner to really think about how to control their business as best they can to be ready for these potential shifts. And so we really kind of relate that to one of the chapters in our book. Chapter title, by the way, is When Enough May Be Too Much. And it really is a chapter that is a story that's designed around the very time-tested theory, the whole Pareto principle, which we all know is the 80-20 rule. So 80% of your benefit is derived from 20% of your effort. Or 20% of your clients give you 80% of your revenue, as an example. It's a great thing to understand as a business owner as you're potentially going into volatile economic times. Rather than being excited about trying all these new and different things that could cost you a lot and maybe not bring anything in it, and perhaps could put the business at risk, if you want to be a bit more conservative as you watch how the economy goes, take a look at what part of your business is the key driver. Who are your key players in your business? And start to have a strategy around, if I have to shift pretty quickly, if I have to maybe contract out of some of my fun new projects for a period of time,
I probably can still maintain or even improve my bottom line if I focus on my 20% that give me 80% of the benefit.
I think that's that macro approach, right? That we don't get to control everything, but I don't know. Can we remember COVID and when you're projecting that, to have that groundedness, that if the two wheels fall off the bus,
right,
that you're still able to park the car. I'm in a snowstorm, so this is what I'm thinking. Kind of where you're at as an entrepreneur to save for that rainy day and just prepare in this very turbulent and dynamic world that we're living in.
And we'll talk a little more about that with challenge number 4. So before we get too far into the volatility, uncertainty, etc. world, when we talk about the recession in particular, just to emphasize what Lisa's sharing, a lot of what we're trying to make sure people are thinking about is, what are you protecting? Right? There's a focus, and you see this in the individual development space as well. There's been a shift from what are my weaknesses and how do I, focus on my time on that, to what are your strengths, right? How do you lean into those strengths to be more than you are today? And I think this is kind of the business equivalent of that, looking at your organization and saying, realistically, we've seen time and time again that there is this 80-20 ratio. And if there is a recession looming, where do you need to protect and emphasize to retain the 80% benefit and value? And so making sure that you have that visibility, that 20% can become your 80% in the future. It's important. We are absolutely not saying cut back preemptively. What we're saying is have that visibility into where your organizational, your business strengths are that are giving you that 80%, because if a recession hits, you need to be ready to contract effectively and maybe even increase your strength through that focus versus panicking and maybe diving into something new that isn't actually going to give you the benefit you need.
Well, this brings up another thought with it. I love the book because it's so thought-provoking and relevant as being an entrepreneur. On that drumbeat that I herald, that's who and what I am, and that's just, it's a curse and a blessing at the same time. Challenge number 4.
So challenge number 4 is the rise of VUCA. And so for those of you where that's a new acronym, so this is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So this is a longhand, shorthand way of saying we don't have control. The world is changing. There is a lot of dynamic craziness out there. And so what the heck do you do about it? And I will say I have a tech background. And so one of the things that I have seen a lot in my career is the rise of Agile and the belief that if we are Agile, we don't have to document things anymore. We don't have to do all of the clunky things that were annoying about the previous methods. And that is a fallacy. It's a misnomer, right? Being Agile still requires basic best practices, solid communication, clear documentation. It's just being Agile about how you do that to dramatically oversimplify. And so that's something that shows up in the book around this notion of the importance of having a backup plan. And so we create this sort of theme around, because I love alliteration, I think Lisa does too, partner, pair, or prepare, as this notion that the world might surprise you, right? And so are you ready for those surprises? You're never going to be ready for everything, but if you take the time now to imagine what could go wrong and what you will do about it if you guess correctly Great, now you're ready. If you guessed incorrectly, that's okay, because you are likely going to be able to adapt one of those other plans you already have handy to address this new craziness. And that is going to be a huge benefit for you and make your life a lot easier in what is going to be inevitably a difficult time.
Knew there was a reason why I held on that question that was coming over from 3. So within that too, the importance of building it right before excelling and expanding. That again, careful what you wish for, because it's easy to get the client, particularly those that are really in the vision. The maintaining that and building past that. Can you lean into that a little bit, and how to have it documented, have your processes in place, and what's a possibility of where entrepreneurs can go for that to fast track that?
Yeah. So, in my business, a lot of what I do is work with clients to unlock scalable and sustainable growth. And that unlock is really a key word, as you're referencing, Maureen, that when you plan and build that strong foundation ahead of time, when you think about the needs for where you're trying to go, you can build structures and processes and approaches and plans that will get you that will leave you better prepared to avoid becoming a victim of that success, right? To lead into some cliches. And Lisa, I don't know if you want to speak a little more, just because I know you have some really great tools that you work with around the business plans and these kind of preparation points. If you want to talk about the key elements.
Yeah, I mean, depending on your business and things like that, even the simplest things, like if you think about our characters in the book, Nancy, a generator. Imagine, we always hear about how our electrical grid it's getting more risky, and we're going to have these rolling blackouts and all of that. It's all the scariest of the gloom and doom. If you're a brick and mortar business, like a Nancy, like a dentist, or anyone who's got all kinds of stuff going on, if you don't have a generator or a plan to keep your business going in the event of things like that, then it's going to, it could have some long-term impact to you. So as an example, all employees should take a look at situations where they might rely heavily on a specific, or did I say employer? Sorry. They rely on vendors that are key. They deliver a key element to their business. And in our book, we talk about, in that case, is it a partner, or do you pay, or do you do something completely different? You need to think about, don't put all your eggs in one basket with vendors. You need to make sure you have good relationships, but you need to make sure that you have more than one in the scenario where you can. Your website, the person who hosts your website, you probably can't have a backup on, but there's a lot of them that you can't. And it's funny because I take my clients through contingency planning all the time. They don't really like to talk about it, but once they get into the detail, they realize how vulnerable their business really can be. So you really need to understand who you're partnering with. Do you have contracts and agreements with them that they will uphold even in the most challenging times? And people usually take action when they actually take a look and drill down into it.
And at the end of the day, again, I'm a visionary, I'm a promoter, I'm that creative energy, and I surround myself with team. The piece that if it potentially can keep you up at night, what can you build in then to mitigate
I like
that?
That's
how I
put your thumb and you say, if I can sleep tonight, everything's good. I've got it under control. I like it.
Well, I would take it one step further and say, making sure it's not just what's keeping me up tonight. Maureen, you used the future tense, and I think that is really crucial, right? It's not just what is keeping me up at night, it's what could keep me up at night. And the more of those things you can identify early, the better positioned, your tech startup, your dentistry business, your any organization or company is going to be.
Okay, here we go. Number 5.
So building advocates, right? So it's, how do we build advocates for our business? And it's really straightforward. We deliver the best customer experience of anyone else, whether it be our competitors or anyone else our clients interact with. If we do that, then we all know this, because when we have a great experience with a company, We tell everyone about it. You've got to work with them. They're amazing, right? You don't even need to have your own marketing team anymore. You've got your clients doing that for you. And think about how business is changing right now. We're becoming more and more digital, right? So customers have access to so much more information. Think about the social platforms that rate us all the time. There's a point in the book where, Nancy talks about, someone could go on and put a bad review about me, and you don't have a lot of control over it, what they say. But if you're amazing at delivering every single time, and it's not just delivering the basics, it's going above and beyond. That's what customers are expecting in today and going forward. And if you're willing to figure out what's exciting and different and well above and beyond, and deliver that to your customers consistently, that's how your business wins. And if you think about it, and you think about, if someone is consistently receiving outstanding service from you, what's that going to do? It's going to create trust in your business with them, right? And when people trust you, then, they certainly are going to be your advocate, but it's also going to become part of your brand and how you're known out in the marketplace as that trustworthy, outstanding business. And it's really competitive, and people can really compare so much more than they ever could in the past. It's incredibly important to take it very seriously.
And one thing I would love to build on with that, Lisa, is people might be wondering, why the heck is this the fifth thing, right? Why isn't this earlier in the list? Isn't this kind of a fundamental day one? And to some extent, yes. The sooner, the better. Absolutely. But this notion of creating advocates for your organization, for your business, is going to be even more successful when you have done all of the steps that we've talked about so far, right? When you have thought about the cybersecurity threats and just that Maslow's hierarchy in the business context, people feeling that their information is protected, that they're secure. You have to have that, or you're never going to get to an advocacy level. You have to have steady staff in your organization that feel valued, that know what the expectations are, or they're not going to be able to bring their best selves to your client base. If there's a recession looming and you can track back and you haven't really thought about what is core to your organization, those advocates who really are connecting with your key focus are suddenly going to be underserved. If you haven't thought about the volatility, if you haven't identified your key risks, again, you're going to undermine those people who can best advocate and speak for you. And so even though this may seem so simple, see what's right, do what's right, have advocates, there's so much behind it that all builds in, that there's a reason we really put this as the culmination and the reward that you get from doing all this other work.
And it's more fun if you're
And that
you're serving them beyond what they expect.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we've all experienced it, and it feels amazing, right? It feels, and you'll go back. And that's what you should be striving for in your business. You want every one of your customers to want to come back. Well, maybe not everyone, but.
All right, so now the bonus here. Get into the book a little bit. Again, we get into communication, get into, leadership styles and partnering with that. What do you look for when you are going into business with a partner, with your alliances, and who do you decide to bring on?
Yeah,
bonus number 6.
Yes, Nancy struggled with this one in the book pretty heavily. Nancy decided, she had been practicing by herself for years, and then she decided, I think it's time, maybe as her, it was her strategy to think about what's next for me. I'll bring in a partner, we'll work together for a while, and then perhaps I'll exit. And she really struggled. And, it goes back to the right employee, the right person. And, Nancy was one of those, I don't think I'll ever find the right person, or at least that's how it felt, because she just didn't feel right. And the right person was actually right in front of her. And it took her a while to understand that. She had to kind of get underneath herself. So it's really, think about that. You really need to understand what your personal driver is behind wanting to work with someone else, and, who you work best with. In Nancy's case, she ultimately, this person, he was perfect. And she was the only one that had problems with him. Nobody else did. Everyone's like, why is she so crabby about him? He's actually pretty good. But it wasn't him. It was what he represented. So that's why you need to get underneath yourself and understand the right partner for you is whoever you could, I'll tell you right now, if you know anything about discs and things like that, it's nice to have a complementary style rather than both of you being kind of these high driving Ds or these Cs that are like detail oriented. It's nice to have a mix. So look for someone who complements your weaknesses and you complement theirs. Someone that you can have, open and candid conversations with. You share the same goals, the same values. It's the same thing with the employees, setting the expectations. What is the business about? What are the values that this business is going to, to run on? And do we both buy into it? So it's really complicated, and it's sometimes, I'm sure, again, it's heart versus head, right? If you really use your head and think about what matters the most, you'll bring on the right person. A lot of times people say, let's do this together just because we get along, let's do it. And that's often a recipe for disaster.
And I will acknowledge that Kate does a little bit of that in choosing her business partner, and, stepping back for a moment in the realm of a book, there are certain areas where we wanted to emphasize tensions and challenges in certain areas where we allowed things to run smoothly for the sake of the narrative. And so Kate and her partner have a fantastic relationship, and she does run into challenges and who else to add to her executive team, right? Sometimes there are personality challenges, as Lisa was alluding to, and she went a little bit the other direction. Right. I work with quite a few people who have built their practices around the notion of bias. And something they like to remind folks of is bias is not, by definition, a negative view of someone. It can be a positive bias as well. And so Kate actually lands in the situation where she has a positive bias towards a friend who joins the business and who is loyal and has that connection and has all of those heart pieces, isn't really qualified.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's that balance between heart and head, because if your head says this is the right fit and you cannot get your heart there, thank goodness Nancy was able to, that will, that's going to be a blocker. And if your heart's all in it, but you're not using your head at all, that's going to be a challenge as well. So really taking the time to step back and say, where is my head? Where is my heart?
And in the book, Nancy acted as Kate's head when Kate was so angry with her because her mother was forcing her to look at the decision she was making the wrong decision for the wrong reason. So you need someone, if you can't get out of your heart, you need someone who can get you out of your heart, and vice versa a little bit.
And that being said, when you're building a team, that don't build a team about people that are yes to you. Have people that challenge you, have people that challenge your leadership style, have people that also bring different, vantage points to the game, because guess what? We're playing a bigger game. Final thoughts. Again, Generation Innovation, Belle Walker, Lisa Levesque. Great book. Love the way it's written. Tell us a little bit about us. We're wrapping up the to make it a narrative and not have it make another manual.
Yeah, so Lisa and I actually started collaborating writing articles. And after we had done that for a while, there was kind of this inevitable discussion, should we write a book? And neither of us was interested in writing a book just to say, hey, look, we wrote a book. And so we started really talking about what spoke to us as readers, and we loved the narrative style. Both of us, all our favorite business books, use a story, use a narrative to bring these concepts to the reader. And at the same time, we realized that we couldn't find anything that used that style and really covered the basics. The most authors that we saw were using that style to leapfrog to the advanced elements, and it's a powerful tool. I think it's a great way to communicate advanced concepts. But entrepreneurs deserve the basics too, and they deserve them in a way that they can engage with and enjoy learning about.
Yeah.
So that's how we landed on the narrative style.
It certainly made the book enjoyable, as well as learning and promoting. So, yes. Okay. You have a gift for us. It's a place that people can, anyway, the next way that people can work with you. What's on the table for 2024?
You can start.
Yeah, so if you go to movemobile.co, you will find the book page. So that is a reference to Kate's business in generation innovation. Over the course of this year, we will be adding additional resources.
Okay.
So join the mailing list, get the book, and then keep an eye out for these tools that will supplement each chapter to allow entrepreneurs to really take the concepts and zero them in for their business and their challenges.
Yeah.
All right, good. So more to come, movemobile.com. Link will be below. More to come.
.co, not .com.
The link will be there so you guys can go direct. All right. Again, Belle, Lisa, great job as always. Till next time.